News Nation will be hosting a town hall with Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tonight. News Nation's Elizabeth Vargas says that she hopes viewers will get a sense of who RFK Jr. truly is, and that, quote, this is everybody's chance to really sort of get unedited and live, hear him speak, and listen to how he thinks.
The event will be held in Chicago and is expected to have an audience of Democratic and Democratic-leaning candidates, The Hill reports. However, not everyone in cable news is as open to hearing from Kennedy. Here's CNN's Jay Tapper.
Do you think on the Democratic side you would do a town hall with someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
I would not.
Okay. Why?
Because he spreads dangerous misinformation about childhood vaccines. I had a personal experience with him in 2005 when he became a professional experience personally with him. In 2005 was when he began in earnest his anti-childhood vaccine campaign. He wrote a story for Salon.com that was jointly published with Rolling Stone, both of which have since
rescinded it, right?
Retracted the articles, and Rolling Stone just completely disappeared it. It was like it never happened. Salon has a page where they acknowledge what happened and et cetera, but Rolling Stone is just like, it's like Hoffa. I don't know what, just gone. Anyway, I just dealt with him, and he was so dishonest in that experience. And since then, he lies about the experience frequently, as an example of how the media is co-opted by Big Pharma.
All right. Well, the irony
The media
here
is co-opted by Big Pharma. That's a lie. It's an outrageous lie. Who could say it?
The irony here is that, so this is being, framed as an opportunity for people to hear him at length and uncut and unedited and live and all of those sorts of things. RFK Jr. has been very clear that he thinks that podcasts are the medium that's going to bring him kind of political success in the same way that television advantaged his uncle. And he has been doing the podcast circuit and doing these 2-3 hour long podcasts all over the place. So a lot of Americans actually already have heard him explain himself at length, defend his views at length, much more so than Jake Tapper choosing to go on establishment podcast Pod Save America with a bunch of former Obama speechwriters who have, since the Obama era, spent all of their time sitting behind a desk and performing live comedy shows of politics. So this is a big trust issue. I have no idea what he's referring to specifically with his interaction with RFK Jr. Of course, it's possible for anyone to misrepresent anything. But what the viewers are seeing, and this is a warning to anyone who has a substantive disagreement with RFK Jr. What viewers are seeing is him being willing to sit down and talk at length about what he believes, cite specific studies, etc. And on the other side, you see people making summary claims like he's an anti-vaxxer, he has a campaign against childhood vaccines.
Dangerous misinformation.
If you listen to RFK Jr., he will say, I am vaccinated, my children are vaccinated, I don't have a pogrom against childhood vaccines. I have these discrete concerns that I have because of women coming to me with their concerns and because of my experiences as an environmental lawyer who has real evidence of the harm that certain toxins have in our environment and potentially have in vaccines. Now, what Jake Tapper could say is there's no evidence that conclusively or really even speculatively leaks childhood vaccines to autism. That is a true statement that science backs up. But RFK Jr. very rarely, if ever, in my experience, having listened to a large number of these interviews, avers to the contrary. What he says is, here's a discrete area where I think there needs to be more exploration. I think the science is unclear here. I think they're having the right kinds of tests here. And of course, it is true that that can breed a kind of ambiguity that might lead people to undercount the benefit of childhood vaccines when they are, in fact, very beneficial. However, instead of making those kind of substantive arguments that are legitimately in conflict with what RFK Jr. is saying, you get this disinformation stuff, and I don't think it's getting through to anybody.
Right. And if you feel the way Jake Tapper does and that so many in the mainstream media do, why would you not want the opportunity to call him out? If you're that, I mean, we're in the, I understand if you don't care, but we're in the battle of ideas. Like, that's our job, right? Is to explore policies and explore opinions and probe them. That's what he does on his show, I think sometimes quite well. Why you would not want to take the opportunity in this case is baffling to me. Because again, as you said, it's not like refusing to interview him has the effect of preventing people from hearing from him. People are hearing from him on his terms and on his territory. And I want to know even more. We interviewed him for some amount of time. We hope to have him back again because there's a lot more I want to get into. I want to know more about what he thinks, particularly are the policy ramifications of what his attitudes are toward, because honestly, what he thinks about where the science is on certain vaccines is not as important to me as, well, what does that mean? You want less government funding of it or more government regulation of it, or what is that's what I want to get at, and I would think you would want every opportunity. Again, I want another opportunity. We had an opportunity. I want additional opportunities to ask those questions.
To your point, Barry Weiss asked him exactly that question on her podcast recently, and there were you can not love that his answers. I don't think he gave as fulsome an answer as I think some people would have liked in that context. But people who are coming to him in good faith and curious about him genuinely are getting that kind of engagement from him, do get a sense of what he's actually about. And the same way I wouldn't say Biden is Catholic and therefore he must not believe in abortion rights. He must not believe in the death penalty. One's personal beliefs and what one wants to do from a policy perspective are separate. We've kind of acknowledged that and accepted that in other contexts. But with RFK Jr., there is this weird pigeonholing of him, and also combined with a lack of intellectual curiosity that is really, I think, siloing mainstream conservative pundits and only going to contribute to the increasing public distrust and low ratings on those programs.
So I'm really glad and proud of News Nation, who we're kind of loosely affiliated with. We have the same partner organization, Nexstar, if anyone watching is unaware. So I'm really glad that they've decided to do this, and I'm really excited to watch what Elizabeth Vargas has to say to him and what other questions that arise. I think it's a really great opportunity for News Nation to which is a newer channel, to distinguish itself from those in the mainstream who are just taking a see nothing, hear nothing approach to his whole candidacy. In April, by the way, Roger Stone, who worked as Donald Trump's campaign advisor in 2015, said that RFK Jr. could lessen Joe Biden's chances and increase Trump's chances of a 2024 win.
And I think it will help in the end soften Joe Biden up for his defeat by Donald Trump.
And to this, Vanity Fair said, of course, the right has welcomed RFK Jr. with open arms. The Atlantic has classified RFK Jr. as the first MAGA Democrat and said that he is, quote, feeding Americans' appetite for conspiracies.
The first MAGA Democrat. I think that's a clever headline, but just, credit where it's due.
What does MAGA even mean anymore, Robbie?
Yeah. No, I mean, he comes from issues like his gateway to all of this was classic left stuff on energy and environment. It's why even though I appreciate a lot of the things he said on COVID and foreign policy, I'm still wary of him, but I'm happy to hear more from him, is because this is all grounded in a very left of center progressive worldview, and somehow, but because the mainstream forces have so convinced themselves that the establishment, the scientific community, sort of almost the corporate community as well, is their constituency, is the people they rely on for guidance and advice, and he's threatening to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's what's wild. And I just did this, so I know. I have an episode of my podcast coming out tomorrow in which I go point by point through every claim that he's made with a doctor, an epidemiologist, Dr. Vinay Prasad, and say what's real here, what's not, right? And it's a mixed bag. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't criticize the stuff where he's wrong. But to make these blanket claims, I mean, to your point, one of his issues is with this National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act from 1986, which says that there is this broad liability shield for vaccine manufacturers. Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea, Jake Tapper? Do you want to weigh in substantively on his concerns? Because if you do not, then everybody who has a wide gamut of concerns that are much broader than something narrow like this act, including things that aren't really true, like the link between, like any kind of proven link between vaccine and autism, are going to throw their lot behind RFK Jr. instead of potentially saying, oh, here's another candidate that similarly has a concern with this pharmaceutical immunity, and we'll go after it without me having to tie myself with a bunch of other ideas that maybe I don't actually subscribe to. And they just don't get that.
Yeah, it's a special reservation for RFK Jr., the designation of crazy or beyond the pale that they have decided. Meanwhile, and also, they also think Trump is crazy. Like, from their standpoint, they think Trump is crazy and has spread dangerous misinformation, right, about hydroxychloroquine and whatever else. That's from their own perspective, and they would clearly do a town hall debate with Trump.
100%.
So anyway, it's just BS.
CNN already has.
Right, they have. They did it. So it's transparently not believable.
It starts to make you wonder if the real thing that is concerning them about RFK Jr. isn't anything about his views on vaccines, potentially has more to do with his views on the FBI, the CIA, the deep state, his accusations of their role in his father and uncle's death and things like that, and his, frankly, much better than Biden record on actually addressing environmental concerns that Democrats like to pretend they care about and then completely inadequately fund. And so that is why conspiracy theory, okay, most Americans are deeply distrustful of the corporate duopoly. And you can call that conspiracy theory and you can call that MAGA, but that's a very dangerous road to go down because most people feel that way. And if you want to turn to Americans and say, if you believe that, then you're MAGA, you're recruiting a whole new phalanx of MAGA people to join those ranks.
Joe Biden declared that 80 million Americans would have to get vaccinated for public health or lose their jobs. And it was eventually overruled by the Supreme Court. I think that was, as policy goes, I think that was pretty crazy. But again, they would say, well, maybe you disagree. Maybe it's okay to disagree with that, I guess. But it doesn't get the crazy designation.
Right.
And I think that rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Neither just starting any war, anywhere,
Not crazy.
anytime.
Nope, not crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Just par for the course.
Well, you can watch the town hall tonight at 9 p.m. and we'll have more Rising for you right after this.